The Juan Soto situation, as that continues to hang over the heads of all of us here. A week from tomorrow is the trade deadline. It's 6 o'clock in the evening, so Tuesday's bound to be wild around here with all kinds of rumors and speculation as to where Juan Soto is going to go, or if he's going to go. The more you listen, the more it sounds like he's going to go. And one of the big reasons is that it's not so much a team that gets him, wants him long term. For the short term, it's pretty good. Short term means 3 pennant races. They get him for this year, next year, and the following year. And if you lose him, well, okay, but maybe during the course of that time you win a World Series, and it's worth it. And I've said this over and over again about the situation with the Nationals, and now they are the worst team in baseball after 3 years ago being World Series champions, and Steven Strasburg giving him that long-term extension. Yeah, it looks terrible now, but at the time it seemed like the right thing to do. And if that was the cost of winning a World Series, to me it was worth it. I grew up with bad baseball. We had the expansion Senators when I was a kid, and then they left when I was 13 years old. We didn't have baseball for 33 years. The team my father rooted for hadn't won a pennant since 1933 when he was 5 years old and wasn't even living here. He was living in Chicago and probably wasn't even a baseball fan then. And the team that he watched during the late 1930s and 1940s when he was in high school, they were bad baseball team. So we got a World Series champion here. And if you say to yourself, if you're a fan of the team that gets Juan Soto, well, he's only here on a rental basis. We only have him for 3 years, and then he's going to the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, whatever team it might be, and you win a World Series, it's okay. You know, the San Diego Padres have not won a World Series. If they get him and they win a series and he walks after 2 seasons, so what? You know, that's just the cost of doing business. Now, the Cardinals are also in this. The Cardinals have won a bunch of World Series, so it might be a different situation for them, but they know what they're doing, and St. Louis is a great baseball town. Now, this was Jeff Passan last night, who was on Baseball Tonight, and here's more on that circumstance of wherever Juan Soto lands. It's very likely to be on a short-term basis.
If it wants to sign him long-term, the contract is going to have to start with a 5, as in $500 million plus dollars. And yeah, there are not a lot of teams that are willing to do that. So I think teams are looking now more at the short term. We have to remember Juan Soto is still only 23 years old.
Right.
He's still under club control for 2.5 more years until he reaches free agency. So I was talking with an executive this week who's hopeful of acquiring him, and he said, it doesn't matter if we can or can't sign him going forward. Right now, we get one of the best players in baseball for the next 2.5 years if we get him, and it's why he's going to bring back, I don't think it's even arguably the biggest return in a trade in baseball history if he does get moved this week, whether it's this week or this offseason.
And again, whether it's short-term or long-term, the haul is going to be huge. You have to give up a lot to get him, but if it gets you a World Series, I think it's worth it. Then you reload, and who knows, with a haul of prospects, maybe the next Juan Soto emerges from that. 4 years ago, just 4 years ago, think about that, the name Juan Soto didn't mean anything. And here we are 4 years later, and he is the main focus of baseball. And that's not to say that the likelihood is that a gem like that is going to float to the surface as it did here. But the way it worked out for the Nationals, not so much in 2019, though he was a huge part of that World Series championship, but the fact that he came up earlier than expected. They didn't want to bring him up in 2018, but they had so many injuries, they thought, okay, we'll bring him up for like a few games, and then we'll send him down when guys get healthy. And in his second game, he hit a home run. And it was pretty clear after playing a few games, this guy was here to stay. And he stuck. And because he was that good, there's no problem saying sayonara to Bryce Harper. They knew when they offered him $300 million, he wasn't going to take it. He was going to get more, although they really had to hustle to get more for him. But they knew he was going to go, and they were okay because they had Juan Soto, and then they had money to spend, and they got Patrick Corbin. And Corbin was a huge difference in winning the World Series. I I think if Soto and Harper are both still here and Corbin is not, I don't think there's a championship flag flying at Nats Park. I really don't. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, who's going to land them? This is what Passan believes, and it sounds to me like he's saying San Diego is clearly the front runner here.
Teams that are most in play at this point are believed to be the San Diego Padres and the St. Louis Cardinals. You've also got the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. They have the money, they have the prospects, they have the motivation. But when you look at the farm systems, the Padres and the Cardinals particularly stand out with their ability to send young players to a Washington team whose farm system right now, frankly, is just not very good and doesn't have very much close to big league ready talent. You can have younger big league players with the St. Louis Cardinals. The Padres farm system, though, is absolutely loaded with Jackson Merrill, with James Wood, 2 draft picks from last season. You've also got a guy like Trent Grisham, who could possibly be involved with a deal of younger major league talent, and Mackenzie Gore, of course, C.J. Abrams. I can go on and on about how much talent the Padres have. They're the team that's probably seen as the favorite across baseball right now.
And again, it's not for long term, it's for short term, but with the stars they have, like Tatis and Machado, that trio could be good enough to lead them to a World Series. And again, it's worth it. Now, Mark Feinstein is a frequent guest on Tony's show. I wouldn't be surprised if he's on today. He wrote a long piece about this in MLB.com. And he talked to 17 different front office executives, none of them identified here, and asked them several questions. Which 3 teams do you view as the favorite to trade for Soto? So 17 executives with 3 votes apiece. Here's how it broke down. Padres, the favorite, at 8. Dodgers, the second favorite, at 7. Then it's the Cardinals, Mariners, Mets, Rays, Yankees, all at 3. Giants got 2 votes, and the Blue Jays, Brewers, Cubs, Rangers, and Red Sox got 1 vote apiece. That's 13 teams. 13 teams that these executives say are in the mix, which addresses the point that Passan makes, is that teams like, let's say, the Brewers or the Blue Jays or the Rays for sure, they're not in a position to give a $500 million contract. But they're looking at 3 years of control for a guy who's going to make roughly over that period of time, let's see, half of 17 this year, and then likely $40 million, $42 million total over the next 2 years, depending on how the arbitration goes. So, you know, that's worth it. That's obviously worth it for him. And if he walks, he walks. So it's not just the usual suspects like the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees and the Red Sox. It's other teams who are looking to land Juan Soto, and that would be enormous for them. 8 of the 15 believe the Nationals will trade the star player Soto by next week, by the deadline next Tuesday. Second question, if you don't believe Soto will be traded by August 2nd, when, if at all, do you expect him to be dealt? 3 of them said the 2022-23 offseason. After the new Nationals owner is in place, new Nationals ownership will re-sign him. 2 of them believe that. I think that's a possibility, but not a strong possibility. Let's put it this way. More from Feinstein. The consensus is the Nationals will get back a package of 3 to 5 top prospects, along with at least 1 young Major League ready player in return for Soto. As far as Major League ready, it would certainly help just for the rest of this year, so it's just less of an embarrassment. Because if they trade Soto, and it seems more than likely they're going to trade Josh Bell, they got nobody in this lineup. I mean, yesterday, Soto walked 3 times, the first 2 times on a total of 8 pitches. So they just don't, you know, they fear him, but they don't fear anybody else in the lineup at this point, maybe Bell to some extent. And it's going to be a long slog through the rest of August and through September without any legitimate bats in the lineup. So that's where we are on that. As far as if he walks or if he's traded, this is what Kevin Blackistone wrote. Now, Blackistone, I really respect him. I've been a friend of his for quite some time. I like his work, and he puts his money where his mouth is. He bought National season tickets. I don't know if there's a full season package, but he's looking at this from a fan standpoint and a ticket buying standpoint. He said he got a bill from the Lerners after these last two seasons. Last two seasons have been terrible, follow-up to the World Series. For his season ticket package this year is up 21%. He says he got no Trey Turner, no Max Scherzer, no Anthony Rendon, no Bryce Harper, no Dusty Baker. That added up, not surprisingly, to more losses than wins. So many losses, the Nationals threatened to have the fastest fall after winning a World Series in baseball history. And he writes, the Soto saga isn't about a contract for him as much as it is about a contract with us, the fan base. We enriched the Lerners through taxes to build the stadium, and this season by shelling out $279.30 on average for a family of four to watch the worst team in the game. Yeah, that was a chart that came out a week or so ago. And more from Blackstone. I don't want to hear any more about the merits in dealing Soto. There aren't any. Swapping an apparent Hall of Fame commodity who plays the game with the panache of Ken Griffey Jr. for a bunch of prospects guarantees absolutely nothing. I want to recognize the virtue of keeping Soto. The Lerners owe not only Soto for what he has accomplished and what his accomplishes a promise for the future, the Lerners owe the fans for the stewardship we've endured the past few seasons. If they don't pay us, then I'm not all in anymore. Not as a season ticket holder, and angrily so. I understand where he's coming from, and I understand those of you who buy season tickets, you want to see a better product on the field, and you don't want to see your stars go. But it appears that baseball has lessened the emphasis on attendance, and all sports are doing this because all the money is in television. Now, you could argue a star player like Soto means a lot more for television ratings, but the television entity is in the dumper right now. Masson is a mess. They're in financial straits. They've lost a lot of viewership and a lot of subscribers, more importantly, and so I don't know how important that is. And I understand the frustration that Kevin has as a season ticket buyer. He put out his own money, whereas a member of the press, he could go for free. But maybe he goes with his family. I know he has a daughter, and maybe goes with his wife or friends or whatever. But he pays money to do this, and he's saying, look, we've seen all these other stars walk, like Trey Turner and Scherzer and all the others, Rendon. We don't want to see this happen. And I understand that. But looks like the baseball model is all about television revenue right now and keeping the costs down. And the reality of signing Juan Soto, especially now, especially where you have an agent like Scott Boras, who almost always takes his clients to free agency, there doesn't seem to be any reason that this is going to happen while he's still under team control. It's more likely going to happen when he becomes a free agent, and they're not going to wait around for that to happen here because, look, it's going to take more than the 3 years under team control to build this back into a World Series contender, I think. I mean, something crazy could happen, but more than likely that's going to be the case. So the feeling seems to be get him to a contending team now, get as much as you can for him in return, and hope that some of those prospects develop. And yesterday we saw Keibert Ruiz, who they got in the Scherzer trade, have 3 hits, including the game winner in yesterday's victory in Arizona. So that seems to be the model going forward. Coming up, one of the greatest guys in sports, and he's not a player. His name is Tim Kurkjian, and of all the speeches for the Hall of Fame over the weekend, including the great star players who were honored like David Ortiz and Minnie Minoso and Jim Cott and Tony Oliva, the best speech came from Tim Kurkjian, and we'll play some of that as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Hour, ESPN 630.